They removed the Virgin Mary statue from the school hallway. What happened next shook everyone. The statue came out of the hallway at 7:14 on a Monday morning. By Friday afternoon, 300 students, teachers, and parents would be standing in the school parking lot, many of them crying, while smoke rolled out of the same corridor where the statue had stood for 69 years. And by the end of that day, even the people who had laughed at the warnings would stop laughing. St. Brigid Academy sat on a wooded hill outside Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, in a town where people still remembered what your father did for work and what your grandmother prayed for at Mass. It was an old school. Red brick, tall windows, polished wooden doors, a chapel no bigger than a living room, and one long main hallway that cut through the center of the building like a spine. For as long as anyone could remember, a statue of the Virgin Mary had stood in an alcove halfway down that hallway. She was not large, just under 4 feet tall, painted in soft white and pale blue, hands open, eyes lowered, face calm. Students passed her every day on the way to class. Some ignored her. Some touched the base in silence before exams. Some left flowers there in May. Some mothers stopped in front of her before parent-teacher conferences. Some children whispered things to her they had told no one else. To some people, she was simply part of the building. To others, she was the heart of it. Dr. Evelyn Harrow saw her as a problem. 48 years old, sharp, composed, and newly hired as principal, Evelyn had arrived 6 months earlier with a plan to save St. Brigid from slow collapse. Enrollment had dropped. Donors were pulling back. The school board wanted modernization, stronger test scores, cleaner branding, more visibility, more appeal to younger families. Evelyn understood all of that. She had built her reputation rescuing struggling private schools. She believed in structure, optics, discipline, and measurable outcomes. She was not hostile to religion. She had grown up Catholic after all. She just no longer trusted sentiment. And to her, the statue in the hallway represented sentiment. Old school, overly devotional. An emotional symbol in the most visible corridor of a school, trying desperately to look polished, forward-thinking, and academically competitive before Friday's Founders Day open house. The consultant from Harrisburg had not said it cruelly. He had smiled, tapped the brochure mock-up, and said, "If you want new families, the entrance experience matters. You want tradition, yes, but not clutter, not visual weight, not anything that feels severe or guilt-centered for prospective parents." A board member had agreed. Then a newer family had complained that their daughter felt watched walking past the statue every day. And that was all it took. "Relocate it to the chapel," Evelyn had said. Respectfully, quietly, no drama. That Monday morning, drama arrived anyway. 2 maintenance men rolled in a padded dolly before first bell. A few teachers slowed as they passed. Then students began to notice. The first was a small first-grade girl named Lily Mercer. Lily had barely spoken at school in nearly a year. After the car accident that killed her older brother, something inside her had gone silent. She answered questions in nods, drew pictures instead of speaking, and kept close to the wall during loud transitions. She stopped dead when she saw the men unfastening the statue from its base. Her tiny backpack slipped from her shoulder. One of the janitors, Mr. Danner, crouched down gently. "It's okay, sweetheart. We're just moving her." Lily looked at him with wide eyes and shook her head so hard her ponytail snapped. Then she whispered, so softly that only he heard it, "Don't put her in the dark." Mr. Danner straightened. "What did she say?" asked the other maintenance man. "Nothing," he muttered, though his face had changed. Farther down the hallway, 7th grader Gabriel Santos came to a stop too. Everyone called him Gabe. He was 12, thin, dark-haired, too quiet since his mother died of ovarian cancer 11 months earlier. Every morning since the funeral, Gabe had paused for 2 seconds by the statue of Mary before first period. Not kneeling, not making a show of it, just touching the corner of the pedestal with 2 fingers, the way his mother used to do. That morning he stared at the workers and said, "What are they doing?" No one answered. Because at that exact moment, Sister Agnes Byrne came out of room 104 and saw the statue halfway unfastened from the alcove. Sister Agnes had taught at St. Brigid for 32 years before retiring, but she still volunteered in the library twice a week and helped coordinate the May crowning every spring. She was 74, small, straight-backed, white-haired. The kind of woman who could silence a room without raising her voice. She walked forward, not quickly, but with purpose. Who authorized this? One of the maintenance men glanced toward the front office. As if summoned by that glance, Dr. Evelyn Harrow appeared at the far end of the hallway, in a camel coat, tablet in hand. I did, she said. Students slowed around them. Teachers pretended not to watch. Sister Agnes looked from Evelyn to the half-lifted statue and back again. Why? We're relocating it to the chapel, Evelyn said evenly. The main hall is being updated for Founders Day. This is temporary. Temporary? Sister Agnes repeated. This statue has stood there since 1957, and it will still be on campus, Evelyn said. In a more appropriate place. The old nun's face did not harden. That would have been easier. Instead, it fell into something much sadder. Appropriate, she said quietly. Is that what we're calling exile now? Evelyn kept her tone calm. Sister, I'm not debating this in front of students. No, Sister Agnes said. You're removing it in front of them. The hallway went still. The kind of stillness children sense immediately. Evelyn lowered her voice. Please don't turn this into a spectacle. Sister Agnes stepped closer to the emptying alcove. For a brief moment, her fingers rested on the pedestal. Then she said, softly enough that only a few nearby people heard, put her back before Friday. Evelyn gave a tight smile that was not really a smile. We're done here. The men lifted the statue onto the dolly. As the wheels began to roll, a scent drifted briefly through the hallway. Not strong, not theatrical, just a delicate trace of roses. Gabe smelled it. So did Lily. So did Sister Agnes. Evelyn did not. Or maybe she did and ignored it. Either way, she turned and walked back toward the front office, while the statue of Mary rolled away from the center of St. Brigid Academy for the first time in nearly 7 decades. By lunchtime, the alcove had been scrubbed, the pedestal removed, and a sleek school banner placed where the statue once stood. Excellence. Tradition. Tomorrow. That was what the banner said. Students stared at it all through the day. No one liked it. That afternoon, Security Officer Ben Calloway helped wheel the statue downstairs to an old storage room near the theater costumes and folded choir risers. Ben was 51, broad-shouldered, graying at the temples. A former firefighter who had taken the school security job after a back injury forced him out of the department. He was not a superstitious man. He believed in exit routes, functioning alarms, and practical shoes. Still, when the storage room lights flickered as the statue crossed the threshold, he muttered, "Not creepy at all." Mr. Danner snorted. They settled the statue against the far wall, covered it loosely with a clean moving blanket, and headed back upstairs. Ben was the last one out. He turned off the light, pulled the metal door shut, and had just slid the latch when he caught the faintest smell in the basement air. Roses. He turned back. The hallway was empty. When he got home that night, he told no one. Tuesday began with rain. Cold spring rain that silvered the windows and made the hall floors smell like wet coats and old wax. At 10:17 a.m., the intercom crackled during fourth period. Teachers looked up, expecting an announcement. Instead, for 3 seconds, the speakers carried a sound no one could identify at first. Not static. Not feedback. Music. Very faint. As if a choir were singing somewhere far away behind a wall. Then it cut out. The office secretary apologized and blamed the aging system. Classes resumed. At lunch, Lily Mercer drew a picture instead of eating. Her teacher, Mrs. Donnelly, glanced over and froze. The drawing showed the long main hallway of St. Brigid in careful childish lines. At one end was a red door, the heavy fire door leading to the east utility corridor. In the middle of the hall, where the statue had once stood, Lily had drawn a woman in blue. Not a childlike stick figure. A woman. Long blue mantle. White face. One hand raised toward the red door. Mrs. Donnelly bent down. Lily. Who is that? Lily kept drawing. Then she said, barely above a whisper, she was standing there because she was watching. Watching what? Lily looked up. The door. That afternoon, Gabe went to the chapel to see whether the statue had truly been moved there. It had not. The chapel was empty, except for votive candles and silence. When he asked the office secretary where the statue was, she said, "I'm sure it's being cleaned." He knew that was a lie. Gabe did not like lies. Not since the hospital days, when adults used phrases like resting comfortably and still fighting while his mother was dying. After school, he waited near the library until Sister Agnes came through with a stack of returned books. He showed her the missing blue ribbon in his hand. It was narrow and faded, tied around a small miraculous medal. "My mom left this there the week before she died," he said. "I always kept it behind the pedestal where no one would see." Sister Agnes looked at the ribbon for a long moment. Then she closed his fingers over it and said, "Come with me." She led him downstairs. Not to the chapel, to the storage room near the theater. The metal latch gave a hard click when she opened it. The room smelled like dust, cardboard, and old wood. But underneath it, faint, impossible, unmistakable Gabe caught the scent of roses. Sister Agnes walked to the far wall and lifted the moving blanket. The statue stood there in the half-dark, face lowered, hands open, blue paint dulled by shadow. Gabe stared at it. He had not expected to feel anger rise so fast. "They put her here?" Sister Agnes said nothing. He stepped forward, tied the blue ribbon carefully around the statue's left wrist, and stood back. "She shouldn't be here," he said. "No," Sister Agnes answered. "She shouldn't." On Wednesday morning, Dr. Evelyn Harrow arrived before sunrise to review Founders Day seating charts. She liked empty buildings. She liked the illusion that everything inside them could be controlled. At 6:12 a.m., as she crossed the main hallway alone, her heel stopped mid-step. The air smelled suddenly, distinctly, beautifully of roses. Not one rose. A room full of them. She turned, expecting maybe flowers had been delivered for the donor breakfast. There was nothing. Only the banner in the empty alcove and the polished floor beneath it. The scent vanished as quickly as it came. Evelyn stood still for several seconds. Then she kept walking. Because practical people do not build decisions around fragrance. By noon, however, practical people were starting to get uneasy. A third-grade teacher reported that 3 students had asked why a blue lady was standing by the east hallway during recess. A cafeteria volunteer mentioned that Lily Mercer had refused to enter the main corridor after lunch. And security officer Ben Calloway filed a minor maintenance note. Possible electrical smell near the east fire door during 6th period. That last part got Evelyn's attention. "Did you call maintenance?" "Yes," Ben said. "They checked the panel closet and said they didn't find anything urgent." "Did you smell smoke?" "No." "So there's no fire?" "No. But I'd rather sound stupid than late." Evelyn appreciated that answer. Even so, she had a campus to run, a board to impress, and donors arriving in less than 48 hours. "Keep an eye on it," she said. "I always do," Ben replied. Wednesday afternoon brought the first real argument. A group of middle school girls taped hand-drawn paper flowers around the empty alcove. Someone wrote, "Bring her back" in blue marker on one sheet. Someone else left a small rosary beneath the banner. Evelyn had the flowers removed before dismissal. When she did, a 10th grade parent volunteer saw it and called 2 other parents. By evening, 3 emails had reached the board. By nightfall, local Facebook groups were arguing about St. Brigid Academy. Some said tradition was being erased. Some said the school needed to stop living in the past. Some said people were being dramatic over a statue. Some said no good school hides the Blessed Mother in a basement. By Thursday morning, the mood inside the building had shifted from irritation to something stranger. Expectant. As if the school itself were holding its breath. That morning, Lily Mercer spoke more words in 1 hour than she had spoken in 3 months. During handwriting, she looked at the clock, then at her teacher, and said, "Please don't line them up there tomorrow." Mrs. Donnelly crouched beside her. "Line who up where?" Lily pointed with her pencil. "Toward the long hallway. Toward the red fire door at the far end." Mrs. Donnelly tried to smile. "Why not?" Lily's face tightened. Not in fear. In concentration. As if she were repeating something exactly as she had heard it. "When the second bell rings," she whispered, "the red door will breathe fire." Mrs. Donnelly felt the blood leave her face. Children say strange things. Teachers know this. Children also say things in tones that make your spine turn cold. This was the second kind. Mrs. Donnelly brought Lily to the counselor. The counselor informed the office. The office informed Evelyn. By 11:15 a.m., Evelyn sat across from Lily in the conference room with the school counselor and Lily's mother. "Sweetheart," Evelyn said gently, "did someone tell you there would be a fire?" Lily shook her head. "Did you see something?" Another shake. Then Lily looked past Evelyn's shoulder toward the hallway window and said, with eerie calm, "She said not to let the children be there." "Who said that?" Lily's eyes moved back to Evelyn's. "The beautiful lady." No one spoke for a second. Lily's mother began to cry quietly. Not because of the sentence itself, but because her daughter had said it clearly, without stuttering, without freezing, as if some locked door inside her had suddenly opened. Evelyn felt every rational part of her mind rise in protest. Trauma response, imagination, pattern seeking, religious environment, a frightened child repeating adult tension. All of that made sense. What did not make sense was why her hands had started to feel cold. She thanked Lily's mother, assured her they would review safety procedures, and ended the meeting. Then she called Ben Calloway. "Check the east hallway again." He did. Twice. He found nothing visible. No smoke. No sparks. No heat on the door handle. But when he came back upstairs, his expression had changed. "What?" Evelyn asked. He hesitated. "Say it." "There's a smell down there," he said. "Electrical? Burnt metal. Maybe insulation. Comes and goes." Then call facilities again." "I already did." "And and they say they'll send someone after lunch." "Not after lunch. Now." I This time, the district electrician arrived at 1:40 p.m. He opened the panel room at the far end of the east corridor, checked breakers, peered behind the utility casing, and came back shrugging. "Building's old," he said. "Could be dust on a heating element somewhere. I'm not seeing an active issue." Ben did not like the answer. Neither did Sister Agnes, who had somehow appeared in the hallway during the inspection, rosary in hand. Evelyn saw the look on the nun's face and snapped before she could stop herself. "This is not a sign from heaven, sister. It's an old building." Sister Agnes met her gaze without anger. "No," she said. "The building is old. Heaven is patient." And that night a storm rolled through western Pennsylvania and hammered the school roof with cold rain and wind. Ben stayed late reviewing security feeds because Founders Day setup crews had moved tables into the gym. At 9:48 p.m., camera 4, the long main hallway flickered once, then twice. The screen whitened for a split second. When the picture steadied, Ben leaned closer. The empty alcove was visible under dim nightlights. And for less than a second, so briefly he almost doubted himself, there seemed to be a figure standing where the statue had once stood. Pale, blue-toned, gone immediately. Ben rewound the footage. Static. Flicker. Nothing. He rubbed his eyes. Then the fire alarm trouble light blinked yellow on the control panel across the office. Not full alarm, just trouble. He stood, checked the zone map, and saw it. East Hall utility corridor. He swore under his breath and headed for the hallway with a flashlight. The school after dark sounded different. Pipes. Old settling wood. Distant rainwater in gutters. By the time he reached the red fire door, the smell hit him hard enough to stop him. Not Ross's. Burning. Not open flame, but hot insulation, stressed wiring, overheated metal. He grabbed the handle. Warm. Too warm. Ben's firefighter instincts took over. He did not wait for permission. He called 911, then Evelyn, then facilities, all in under 30 seconds. The problem was timing. By the time emergency crews fully evaluated the damaged section the next morning, Founders Day had already begun, and the school was full. Parents streamed in through the front entrance. Donors wore name badges. Students in navy sweaters rehearsed musical numbers. The gym was decorated in blue and gold. A brass ensemble tuned near the stage. Evelyn stood near the front desk with a smile that felt brittle around the edges. The fire crew's initial overnight scan had found heat damage in conduit behind the east utility wall, likely worsened by the storm, but they had not shut the building down. They had recommended isolating part of the corridor and bringing in the building inspector for a full review after the event unless additional warning signs appeared. So Ben had roped off the far east end with temporary barriers. That should have eased him. It did not. Because the morning assembly still required 300 students to move through the long main hallway before entering the gym from the side doors. And all of them would pass the empty alcove. At 9:57 a.m., 7 minutes before the second bell that signaled movement to the Founders Day program, Gabe Santos slipped away from his homeroom. He went downstairs, past the theater closet, past the folded risers. past the storage room. When Ben found him there 2 minutes later, Gabe was standing in front of the statue with tears on his face. The blue ribbon still hung from Mary's wrist. "She doesn't belong down here," Gabe said without turning. Ben softened his voice. "You can't just disappear like that today. My mom used to say Mary stands where mothers can't." Ben did not answer, because suddenly, with sickening clarity, he smelled it again. Burning. Not faint this time. Sharper. Closer. His radio crackled with static. Then Evelyn's voice. "Ben, where are you? We're about to line up." Ben grabbed the radio. "Keep them out of the main hall." A beat. "What?" "Keep them out of the main hall." Before Evelyn could answer, the building fire alarm exploded into full volume. It was deafening. Stabbing. Total. Students screamed. Teachers shouted. The gym froze. Then training took over. Teachers began evacuating by nearest exits. Parents looked around in panic. The band stopped mid-note. Evelyn felt the sound hit her like a physical force. For one insane moment, she almost thought, false alarm, bad timing, disaster for optics. Then she saw Lily Mercer. The little girl stood near the gym doors, looking toward the main hallway with her hands over her ears. Her lips moved around one silent sentence. "Thank you." Ben came up from the lower stairwell with Gabe in tow, both of them running. "Out!" he shouted. "All the way out! Move!" The next 90 seconds happened
Wait,
too
are they
fast for
moving the
memory to
Blessed
hold in
Mother?
one pace. Doors opening.
Why would they do that right before
Teachers
Founders
counting
Day?
heads. Rain-wet winds slamming across the parking lot. Parents clutching toddlers. And then, as the last cluster of students cleared the main entrance, the sound came. A violent cracking boom from inside the east corridor. Then another. Glass shattered down the hallway windows. A surge of orange flashed behind the long interior doorways. The red fire door at the far end blew outward on its hinges, and a tongue of flame rolled across the exact stretch of hallway where the middle school students would have been lined up if the second bell had rung on schedule and the alarm had not gone off when it did. People in the parking lot screamed. Someone dropped to their knees. A teacher covered her mouth with both hands and began sobbing openly. Smoke pushed up the stairwell and out the front transoms in thick gray bursts. Within minutes, sirens filled the hill below the school. Firefighters poured in. Ben, already shaking with adrenaline, gave fast-clipped information from the curb while watching the burning corridor through the rain. Evelyn stood beside him, pale and speechless. "How many seconds?" she asked, finally. He knew what she meant. "Maybe 60, he said. "Maybe less." She looked back at the building, at the main hall, at the empty alcove, then at the children huddled in the lot under umbrellas and emergency blankets. And for the first time in a long time, Dr. Evelyn Harrow looked not like a principal managing crisis, but like a woman standing in the ruins of her certainty. The official explanation came in fragments over the next several hours. Water intrusion from the storm, compromised aging conduit, a fault in the utility chase behind the east corridor wall, heat buildup, arc, event, flame spread. The language was technical and real. So was the fact that if the students had been in the hallway, many would have been trapped between fire and broken glass before evacuation could begin. But there was one thing the fire marshal could not explain. "What triggered the alarm so early?" Evelyn asked. He checked his notes. "System shows general alarm activation." "From what zone?" He frowned. "That's the problem. None of the hallway smoke detectors should have tripped before the arc. They were damaged after the event, not before. No pull station activation either." Ben looked over. "Then why did it go off?" The marshal gave the kind of answer officials give when the paperwork does not match reality. Could have been panel failure related to the electrical fault. Could have. "It saved lives," the marshal said, closing the folder. "That part is not in question." No, it was not. By late afternoon, the rain had stopped. The parking lot had become a field of rumors, prayers, shaken parents, and stunned children wrapped in school blankets. Lily Mercer sat beside her mother on the curb, calm for the first time in days. Gabe stood with Sister Agnes, still holding the blue ribbon he had untied from the statue downstairs just before the alarm sounded. Evelyn approached them slowly. She looked older now, the kind of older that arrives in one day and does not leave. Sister Agnes said nothing. Evelyn did not defend herself. She did not explain policy, optics, donor pressure, or branding. She only looked at Gabe and asked, Will you show me where they put her? 5 minutes later, escorted by fire officials, Evelyn walked down to the lower storage room with Ben, Sister Agnes, and Gabe. The room smelled of wet cement, old fabric, and roses. Not imagination, not memory. Roses. Even Ben, practical Ben, stopped pretending not to notice. Evelyn lifted the blanket from the statue. The face of Mary emerged from shadow into the dim worklight. Blue mantle, open hands, calm, eyes lowered. Gabe stepped forward and placed the faded blue ribbon back around the statue's wrist. Then he whispered, "Mom would have said thank you." Evelyn's eyes filled without warning. When she finally spoke, her voice was thin. "I moved her because I thought she was in the way." No one answered. "I thought," Evelyn said again, staring at the statue, "that I was protecting the future of the school." Sister Agnes's reply was quiet. "And perhaps she was protecting the children in it?" Evelyn bowed her head. Something inside her, something long defended and carefully organized, gave way all at once. Not into spectacle, into truth. The next Monday, classes resumed in a temporary schedule while repairs began on the East Wing. Parents expected legal updates, safety plans, and official statements. They got those, but they got something else too. At 8:10 a.m., in the same long main hallway still smelling faintly of plaster dust and fresh paint, faculty, students, parents, and board members gathered around the restored alcove. The school banner was gone. In its place stood the Virgin Mary once more. Not in the chapel, not in storage. In the hallway, where she had always been. The base had been cleaned. Fresh white lilies sat at her feet. Someone had placed a small brass plaque beneath her that read, "Our Lady of St. Brigid, watch over our children." No one officially admitted who ordered the plaque. Most people assumed Sister Agnes. They were wrong. It was Evelyn. She stood in front of the assembly without a podium. No notice. No polished administrative tone. Just a woman changed by the sight of children alive in a parking lot. "When I came to this school," she said, "I believed saving it meant improving its image, its numbers, and its future. Those things still matter. But last Friday reminded all of us that a school is not only walls, branding, and plans. It is memory, it is care, it is faith. It is the things we guard without always understanding them." Silence. Wind moved lightly through the open transom windows. Evelyn's voice tightened once before steadying again. "I made a decision that wounded many people. I believed I was removing a symbol. I did not understand I was disturbing a trust that generations had carried through joy, fear, grief, and hope. For that, I am sorry." Parents wiped their eyes. Teachers stared at the floor. Ben Calloway stood near the back with his arms crossed too tightly. Then Evelyn looked at the students. "Last Friday, we were spared a tragedy. You may explain that however you choose. As a principal, I will always honor safety, investigation, and evidence. But as a human being standing where I am standing now, I will also say this. There are moments when grace enters a place before we are ready to name it." Then she stepped aside. Sister Agnes led a prayer. Not long, not dramatic, just steady. Old words in an old hallway now full of people who heard them differently than they had a week before. When it ended, students began filing past the statue on the way to class. Some touched the pedestal. Some crossed themselves. Some simply looked up. Lily Mercer stopped in front of Mary and smiled. A real smile. Her teacher leaned down and asked, "Are you okay?" Lily nodded. Then she said, clearly, easily, with no trace of the silence that had trapped her for nearly a year, "She's happy now." Mrs. Donnelly burst into tears before she could stop herself. By Christmas, certain facts had become part of St. Brigid lore. No one ever proved what triggered the alarm. No camera ever captured anything convincing enough for the news. And no official report used the words miracle, sign, or warning. And yet the story kept spreading. About the little girl who said the red door would breathe fire. About the smell of roses in the hallway and basement. About the donor open house that became an evacuation. About the principal who removed Mary and brought her back. About the statue in the school hallway that somehow seemed less like decoration and more like a witness. Enrollment rose the following year. Not because of marketing strategy alone, because people heard what happened and wanted their children in a place where faith was not hidden in the basement when it became inconvenient. Ben Calloway returned to Mass after 14 years away. Gabe Santos started serving at the altar. And every May, when students crowned the statue with white flowers, Dr. Evelyn Harrow stood in the back row with folded hands and watched in silence. She never gave another speech about it. She never needed to. Because everyone at St. Brigid remembered the week they removed the Virgin Mary statue from the school hallway. And what happened next shook everyone.